Up next, we have Mike Knoll. I know a lot of you folks know Mike. He was on the LEAPS committee for quite a while, and did, of all the folks we've talked about who've worked on LEAPS, there have been fantastic folks. I don't think any have done as much as Mike has. He did when we went to e-LEAPS, his input was instrumental with the e-proceedings and all the things that he provided. We just, again, a huge contribution to to this whole LEAPS organization and his tenure while he was active duty. The great thing about Mike, or I'm going to give you a few tidbits. He epitomizes what it means, what it is to be a Navy sailor or naval officer. Started in the 80s doing Cold War stuff on ships as a signalman. Rose all the way to chief, and then decided to become an officer. So I think when you think about that, it really it's telling, because for those of you who know Mike, you know that everything he does 1,000%. He doesn't 50% anything. He's full speed. It's one speed. It's 12th gear, 100 miles an hour all the time. And that's what I love about him. I told this story earlier today. I met Mike. I was driving out. I just lateral transferred from aviation. I drove out to Baylor, and I didn't know the first thing about healthcare. And the first person I met was Mike Knoll in the parking lot. And I said, "Hey, you're in the Baylor program?" "Yeah, I'm in the Baylor program." "What do you do?" I'm a Mustang, former chief signalman." I said, "Oh, another line guy." I was thinking, all these guys must be line. This is going to be great. And then we sat down in class and realized that all the MSCs are not former line guys. And Mike and I used to lean on each other heavily with all the acronyms and all the things that came out. And again, I mentioned these folks earlier: the Darren Verholz, the Rob McMahons, the Tim Barnes, the Alex Aldanas, the Trey Newmans, the Kelly Boyer. This fantastic group of MSCs that we were lucky enough to get to know and then kind of become MSCs based upon their example. And nobody bit in harder than Mike Knoll. And the one thing, or of all the things that he bid in on, and I really encourage folks here to get to know him, because he's been all over the world, and like I said, since the 80s with the Navy. But I can remember him cooking breakfast in his microwave, and it's the best breakfast I've ever had. He can do more with a microwave than I can do in my kitchen, that's for sure. He's forgotten more about wine than I'll ever know. And again, that's the testament to the way he just dives in full speed ahead on the things that he enjoys. And one of the things that he enjoyed, or he got into while we were at Baylor, was data presentation. We had this instructor who didn't like any of the bits and you put a soundbite in a brief, or colors or backgrounds. He thought that was all noise and it was wasteful. And I came from a community aviation where, like, if you literally, we'd be given briefs, and if it wasn't entertaining, they'd boo you off the stage, with my CO included. Be like, "Get out of here, this brief is terrible, I'm not entertained." It's like walking into the gauntlet. So I would fill my briefs full of pictures and funny videos and whatnot, and that did not play well at Baylor. And then we learned about what effective presentations are, and what it means to put data on a presentation, how folks perceive it. And like, again, nobody bit harder than Mike, and over the years I've watched him grow that, and I don't think anybody does it better. If you had an opportunity to see his bio, he takes his bio, 32 years of service, and it's the written version is like 3.5 pages. It's actually entertaining, and I encourage you to read it. But the coolest part about it is he takes that 3 pages and compresses it into just a graphic, a very simple graphic. And you get out of that graphic everything that's in his bio, all the important things, So how can we do that, right? We talked, Ray Jorgensen just talked about it, PowerPoint presentations, right? Say it in 6. We all hear that at our ESC. Say it in 6. Don't show up to a brief with a senior officer with 30, 40, 50, 60. We had somebody come to the SG recently, 76 slides, plus 6 intro slides. So I said, "Guys, it's not going to work. Like, I can't bring that to the boss. It's not going to work." And we fought, and got it to 40 slides. Right? And I came in and said to the boss, I said, "We're at 40 slides." I said, "Don't worry about it, And then understand that there are reasons why briefs need to be long, but I think that we can all take away a lot from how we make our presentations more effective, more meaningful. shorten them up, but make sure they're powerful. And that's what Mike's an expert in. And again, I'm really excited he's here. Retired MSC, LEAPS committee member, personal friend of mine, and just, we stay in the Navy not because of the pay or the glory. It's because of the friends and the people you meet. And Mike's one of the guys on my list. That's why I'm still here. And I can't say thanks enough and for coming. Thanks, everybody. Mike Knoll.
Do I have a clicker?
Yes. Is it up there?
It is.
Awesome.
Does this work? It does. It does. No, it does. Okay. I gotta stay in my box.
Please. Please stay in the box.
Okay, thanks. And this is kind of interesting and fun, and it's a good thing that big crowds make me nervous, so I'm not nervous now. And two things that were brought up a little while ago. I assure you that this will not be inspirational like the coach or Ray. And I've also violated a lot of his policy because I do have 69 slides. But there's a reason for that, because we're talking about this stuff. Okay, real quick, just about the title, Design or Doodle. So I was thinking about this. I probably should have said Doodle or Design, because almost all design start as a doodle. If you think of a doodle as the first thing that comes out of your head and it lands on a cocktail napkin, there's a doodle. A design is something that has more purpose, structure, or reason behind it. So that's kind of where I'm going here, is that if you take the first thing Excel or PowerPoint drops out and you stick it in a chart, it's probably more like a doodle. The idea of design is we want to refine it and put some purpose behind it. Okay, so why is this topic even important? The real reason why it's important is you, wherever you are, will probably be at some time required or requested to report on a program or a project or an inquiry or something. You have a question that you have to answer. And that answer should make sense. It should be unbiased, it should be unskewed, it should be honest. And so there are things that you can do when you go to present data or information and answers that do inject bias. And it will skew it, will cause people to think a certain way, and that's not what we should be doing. So how we're going to get to a point where we can build rich data visualizations is there's three topics that I kind of put up in here. I said, I want to talk about design, I want to talk about analysis, and then I want to talk about reporting. Reporting is really the creation of the answer and the distribution back to the people who want to consume it. And then when we're done with that, we're going to look at some really ugly things, and we'll look at some things that I think are really cool, and I hope you do too. And then there's this about me thing. It's not really about me. It's like, why me? Why am I here? Steve brought up a lot of this stuff, so I'll kind of skip through it. I did grow up in a family that had access to computer technology at a very, very early time. I was a computer guy. So in the 80s to 81, we had computers in the house and everything like that. And so I got into computer graphics really early, both vector and pixel-based. And then also, just for whatever reason, I found desktop publishing, page layout, typography, all of that stuff I just found really interesting. So if you want to sit down and talk fonts, I'm happy to do it. So once I got, okay, so then that was the beginning, and then eventually, as Steve brought up, I went to Baylor, and that's where it really all kind of collided. That's where it was kind of like part two of this whole thing. And that's where I was introduced to the academic rigor of research, design studies, and then the presentation of the data. And it just fit so well, I was like, holy crap, this is neat. For whatever reason, it's neat. Then after that, I did my residency. I was at Cherry Point. I worked in managed care, healthcare business, so I did a whole lot of data, when you're looking at your populations and your beneficiaries and whatnot. And then we had to execute the 2005 RAC. I was put in charge of the Office of Transformation, which means there was an endless stream of inquiry from all the way up at BUMED to the beneficiaries, internal to the departments. What are we going to do? How's this going to go? Who's going to get what care and everything like that? And so as a result of all these thousands of questions, it seemed like I developed three overarching principles that I wrote on my whiteboard, and even still today in my home office, I have them written up there to kind of give me a true north or a way to step through answering questions. And this is what it looks like. The first one is, what's the question? Because you can't really go to start looking for an answer if you don't really understand what it is you're being asked to do. The next one is compared to what? And this really has to do with context. An answer can be an answer only if it makes sense in a framework that the question is, or you're answering against that. And then last one, this is the result. This is your answer. Should be content-rich, BS-free. And this goes back to what Steve was saying. All those little spinning graphics and logos and all this other crap, take it all off, because the answer needs to stand on its own. And that's really what an answer is. And so, put back into the framework of what I'm talking here today, this is what it is. Wow, there's no color. That's interesting. Okay, anyway. So, because there really was color on here, these are, anyway, I hope this doesn't mess everything else up. We're going to go through it anyway. Okay, so the first two questions fall right on analysis. The content-rich, BS-free comprises both design and reporting. Okay, there's two attributes to design and reporting that I just want to get you familiar with really quick, and it has to do with dimensionality and resolution. And what this means, dimensionality, is when you produce a chart or a graphic or something, dimensionality is how many X's, how many variables can I pack into this? Because that gives you the ability at that time to start doing comparisons. I can look from year to year. I can look from one attribute to another attribute, and I can start gaining more information than simply a single answer by itself. The other one is resolution, that has to do with the granularity or the specificity of your data itself. So in your resulting chart, can I actually glean real numbers, or is it just kind of rough order of magnitude? All right, let's go to design. And I have some bonus examples that you get as well. Okay, these are just a couple of tidbits that I've kind of created on my own, I think, or I've gotten them from other people and I can't remember who they were. First one is when you're creating a graphic, here's an overarching rule. If it doesn't add to the answer, it's actually taking away. There is no such thing as a neutral graphic element. It either does something or it ruins something. And along with that, these are some of the things you should probably think about. Does it really do anything? Excel is going to give you a bunch of lines, borders, tick marks, everything like that. Feel free to go in and just remove them because they don't really help you. Okay, don't box things in. If you put something on a chart, some people just love to put borders and frames around them. You should just stop doing that. It doesn't do anything, and it really starts separating your page so it doesn't organically flow. Color has meaning. You should just know what it is. If you create a chart and Excel just assigns periwinkle blue to something and you want it forest green because maybe you're talking about the Marine Corps, you should switch it to that, or if you want it scarlet red. And then again, white space is your friend. It's okay. Things need to have an organic feel. The worst, most daunting piece of paper that you'll ever want to go read is a naval message, because it's 1/2 inch margin all the way around. It's written in all caps, and it's just huge. And you look at it, and you're like, God, unless it's your PCS orders, and of course you want to read them. But outside of that, you're like, God, can somebody just tell me what it says? Okay, here we go. 4 design principles. I nicked this out of a book. I'll tell you what it is at the very end. It's fantastic. Okay, here it is. First one, 4 design principles. The first one is proximity. When things are together, there is an assumed natural relationship. So if you have things on your chart or whatever you're designing, and you want them to be associated with it, you should just put them together. If you don't want them to be associated, you should put them far apart. Here's a couple examples. Top one's pretty self-explanatory. Does that boy belong to the girl? I don't know. Over here, see that they are. Over here, you can't really tell because we're washed out a little bit, but there's a business card example on the bottom. And so the rule of proximity says you should just put things together. So over here on the redesigned one, I don't know if this says later one, I don't know. Anyway, if, okay, you'll see that they've been, anyway, okay, so we moved the name and the company together, and then we took all the elements of an address and phone number, contact information, and we put them together. Looks cleaner. Okay, next one is, we don't have, it's alignment. And so alignment visually connects, and it allows organization for your product. And really what it is, the rule says things don't just randomly go somewhere, they need to be somewhere, and then they should be connected to something. Top one, again, we're using the principles of alignment and proximity to make the business card over here. The one actually did have alignment on the last one, but it's center aligned. And to be honest with you, you should stay away from center alignment because it doesn't give a nice clean line. You should left align, or if you're edgy and trendy, right align. And then down here, there's another example. This was really interesting, I think. The one on the left, this is probably how somebody would do it, but really there's 3 different alignments on this one. The text over here is left align, the 6 steps to pi is center, and then there's a photo that's right aligned. If you move to the other side, everything is actually left aligned over here. You'll see that there's a lot more clean lines, and over here, we freed all that boxed in space, so it now becomes the ragged right, and it allows your eye to just flow right off the page. The last one, contrast. The rule of contrast basically says, if it's supposed to be the same, make it exactly the same. If it's supposed to be different, make it very different. That way it doesn't look like it's halfway in between. And in this case, one of the things, so when you're building your charts and graphs, contrast, if something is important, it should have a higher level of contrast. If it's kind of a supporting cast, just lower the contrast by changing the color or adjusting its transparency and opacity. Okay, and then the last one is repetition. This is kind of simple. You've seen this before, but repetition allows for you to understand that a document belongs to the same one. Okay, pick an element and repeat it all the way throughout. Over here, they took these headers, they made them the exact same font, and then they also changed its color, and then there's repeating it has power, has power, has power, whatever. And then the same thing over here, we repeated the font and the stroke of it on the phone number at the bottom. Really what it does is if you have a 10 or a 12 or a 14-page, 100-page document, once you get an idea for what's going on, this is why you can just flip through to page 295 and know I'm at the beginning of the section, at the beginning of the paragraph, because we repeated elements along the way. Okay, moving to do analysis. Of course, with bonus examples. Okay, here's a couple ones right here. First one, don't aggregate your data. I mean, you can if somebody says, what were the quarterly figures? Yeah, you can give the quarterly figures, but I'm going to show you a way that you can give them the quarterly figures but make it more meaningful. When you do aggregate your data, you lose resolution. It's that specificity we're talking about. And then also a single data point means very little. This goes back to compared to what? There should be other things. Sometimes it's just known what we're comparing it to, so that's okay. But if not, you should add in things to compare to. Here are your bonus lessons or examples on this one. Regression is not forecasting. I'm going to prove this to you, so I'm just not going to talk anything else about it. And then also, don't include the whole when comparing the parts. That may sound weird too, but it's going to make sense right now. Is forecasting, use regression. This is okay. I'm going to use an MTF monthly live birth example, and don't make fun of me if you're at like Pendleton or one of the big med cents or something. I use really small numbers because I was at Cherry Point and Sigonella. Okay, but anyway, the graph is a little bit washed out. Maybe if you're following along, if you have the chart, you can see it. But anyway, so I have a bunch of dots. This represents the number of live births. And then I have months down at the bottom. Somebody found the thing in Excel where you can right-click on a data point and say, add trend line. All right, Mr. or Mrs. Analyst. Now you have a line in your data. What are you going to do with that? Well, obviously we're trending down. We're having less births all the time. Are we? I don't know. Obviously in November, December, we had much less than it seems like we did other times. Why is that? I don't know. Is it because November, December, maybe a lot of people went back to their home and had babies with their families? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, we don't know what the reason is. Maybe the troops that we normally support here were deployed, and so there wasn't enough baby-making activity 9 or 10 months earlier, which would maybe result in a higher number over here because they all came back. Who knows? We don't know what it is, but the point is, the trend line doesn't really tell you anything. But if you wanted to become a very fancy analyst and say, well, I'm going to predict next year. On that same thing, you can say forecast. Forecast period. So I got 12 months. I'm going to forecast 12 more months and see what happens. Well, it looks like we're going to zero. So bad news. You're going to sit at the board of directors and you're going to tell everybody we should shut down the OBGYN thing, we should shift everything to the network, we're losing money, and everything like that. Clearly, that's not the case. Why? Well, because linear regression is a line. If you point it one way, you're going to get to zero. If you point it the other way, you're going to get to infinity. So it doesn't do any good to move it beyond the data set that it describes. Comparing the whole with the parts. This is funny. Here we go. Somebody asked a question. I don't know who asked the question. Maybe it's the PRT coordinator or something. Hey, how many boys, how many girls do we have at the command? I'll get that information for you. So I put it in my little chart, and I freaking drag a line over it, and I say, insert chart, this is what I get. Here's the number of men, here's the number of women, and here's the total. Well, thank you. You know that it's like a binary data, right? You're either a boy or a girl. Okay, cool. So you have it in there just because you want to tell them how many it is. But the problem is, just viewing this, it really throws off. You can't get a really good idea of the comparison between men and women because this other one is kind of like drag your scale all the way up. So really what it should look like is that. And then you, okay, now I can see the relationship if I had to see it. If you still don't believe me, and then of course you can always just write the N at the top of the thing if you want to do the math for somebody. Now they know what the total is and they know everything they need to know about this. But now watch this. The all-time, a lot of people think that the pie chart should just be thrown away and just destroyed. It's very little value anywhere. But if we were to take that data set and do the first one as the pie chart, all right, so how many men and women do we have in the command? Well, it's clear that half of everybody is everybody. And so on the other side, we have men and women. So that's kind of silly. So if you take that other slice out, okay, now it looks right again. I put the N up there. But in this case, you could even ask yourself, do I even need a pie chart to describe this data? When really, you could just write that on one line. Or more commonly referred to as that. So, I don't know. Do you need a chart? Probably not. We're just buzzing along, going into reporting. Okay, here you go. So, how about this? Actually, we're going to spend a little bit of time on the back end because it's really freaking cool. Don't apologize for bad numbers. They're your numbers. If your numbers suck, will you figure it out? Okay, the first thing they tell you in public speaking school is you should know your audience. That may be true, but the thing is, if you're reporting at your MTF, you know your audience. You're going to go stand in front of the board of directors. You don't need to focus on that. You should focus on knowing your data. If you can't answer first or second or maybe even third order questions into your data, you run the risk of looking like a clown shoe. You should know your data. Learn your software. Okay, look, nobody's born knowing how to use Excel or PowerPoint. We all had to learn it. Some people just stopped. Well, you could go to the help menu or you could use the web browser that you have on your computer and ask the Google, how do I make better charts? How do I change the elements on these charts? Just learn it. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you can't just say, I don't know how to do it. You can, but again, refer to clown shoe. Okay, show the N if you need to. If you're reporting in percents, it's usually a good thing because, you know, percents kind of don't really ever tell you that much. Especially if your numbers are really small, of course, as you get closer to zero, things do like this. So show your N if you need to. And then here's the last one. If you are going to create very rich, powerful visualizations, you have to give your audience time to consume them. They have to be able to get this in. It's not something like that bar chart where you can look at it, you're like, yeah, next slide. When you make really good ones, it takes a while to consume them. So you got to give them time or provide a handout, which is the first example. I'm going to give you a mathematical argument why you should give a handout and not print your PowerPoint slides. Next one, watch your axis. This is huge. Okay, we're going to talk about why do we even create graphics. It's interesting, we're halfway through this, and now we're going to ask, wow, why don't we just write the numbers down and be done with it? And then last one, a quick tutorial on how to increase your resolution and dimensionality of your chart. That way it will be rich and people will have to take time to eat it. So here you go, dedicated handout versus printing your PowerPoint slides. People are like, hey man, can I get some more information on this? Don't print slides, they're usually kind of worthless. And here is a mathematical argument against that. If you take a regular US letter piece of paper, subtract 1-inch margins all the way around, when you design and go to print on a laser printer, you're going to get about 300 dots per inch. This is how we normally in the graphic world, this is what you look at. When you design for a computer, which is what you're doing on PowerPoint, it already starts off with 1-inch margins of what you're looking at, and then PowerPoint's going to add more margins, and then if your command has templates, it's going to add even more margins and footers and everything like that. So you probably won't even get to this number of pixels up here, 2,592. And this is a relative picture right here. So you get about 1/8 the amount of space if you print a slide versus going right into Microsoft Word and creating a real handout with a lot more information on it. Axis manipulation. I'll call it the original sin. This is where a lot of bias is put in. Here you go. I'm going to bring this to the board of directors, the ESC. I'm going to say, look, this is the data right here. I'm telling you what's going on. Everybody's going to start freaking out. We need to spin up a Six Sigma thing. We need to get this process under control. I don't even know. Or should we fire people, hire people? I don't know what's going on. If you were to adjust and ground your 0 to be the origin, 0 and 0 on X and Y, you'll see that it's like this. And now a lot of people are like, yeah, but I started there, but I couldn't see the changes. So I kept changing it so I could see it. Really, the answer is, if you can't see it when you're at 0, it's probably not there. The difference between the highest bar and the lowest bar on this right here is the number 25, which represents 0.2% of the average of all of those. Next slide, come on, let's not. Oh, now here's the other one. There's not a lot of rules on this one, but there is a rule of thumb that I'll give to you. This one right here is where you just, this is the same data set. Not as the first one, this is a different data set. But these two right here represent, say, so on the top one, it invokes a certain amount of calm. You're like, we got some ups and downs, gutters and strikes, we're okay. The one at the bottom, you're like, again, I don't know, should I hire people or fire people? The world's out of context. In this case, Dr. Ed Tufte says, because there is no strict rule on this one, is that you may want to adjust your chart so that the average change is about 45 degrees. If you get about 45 degrees on most of your angles, then the rest of them you're still going to get directionality and magnitude of change from one point to the next. All right, why do we use graphics in reporting? So everybody's heard of the old idiom, right? I thought this was funny, so I put it in here. So in theory, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I'll tell you, not every picture is worth 1,000 words. The reason why we increase dimensionality and resolution is so we can try to get to 1,000 words. Some of them, like the pie chart, is probably worth 3 words, 5 words. But we use charts, or we use this, it really goes back to 1973. Here's the argument on this one. In 1973, computer power is moving on. We have mainframes, processing is going on. We are now moving away from using dedicated T and Z tables and ANOVA tables, and we're actually starting to be able to predict or calculate real probabilities. At the time, though, in 1973, the only screens that we have are like the glowing green monitors. So there's a push in the academic world to say, well, you know what? Real numbers, the actual digits, are really what describe data. Charts are kind of like, yeah, whatever. They're good for cartoons, or if you really need to, it's not that important. So the statistician Francis Anscombe built 4 data sets, and this is the descriptive statistics for those 4 data sets. If you already know Anscombe's quartet, then you know the answer to this. But anyway, here is it. So the mean and the mean and the variance for both the x's and the y's. The correlation and even the line of regression is the same for each of these 4 data sets. And so you may be drawn into the conclusion that they are all equal. But when you graph them, this is what they look like. And it shows not only the power of outliers, but also the difference between linear and exponential curves. It really kind of drove the point that, whoa, maybe there is some value in looking at your data. Okay, here's a quick one. So we're going to use the annual budget execution, because comptrollers love to execute money, because that's what they do. So here we go. We'll start off with this. Fiscal year 16. Hey, how did we execute our budget? Okay, well, this is what it was. Quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's how much we spent. Let's just say that our budget was about $13,250,000, and we got really close to fully executing our budget. Congratulations. Okay. But you hand this to somebody, and you're like, okay, can there be any more? Yes. How about this? Put in FY15. That's always good to know. I mean, if the first thing you want to compare, if it's on time, well, what happened last year this time? Did that work out? And so if you put this in, then you're like, wait a minute. Quarter 2, man, we really under-executed here. It looks like we caught up by quarter 3, but then quarter 4, we're low. Is this year after year, do we have the same budget? Yeah, it's the same budget. It's not on the chart, but let's just say, yeah, it's the same budget. Oh, man, we didn't even get it on there. So really, how do comptrollers like to calculate their execution? They look percents. Now, unfortunately, here you can't see all the other bars because we're really washed out on this projector. But there are actually bars behind this showing the FY16 actuals, and then we've created a secondary axis, and we've dropped off percent execution all the way down. So now I can calculate percentage of executed month by month. I've unrolled the quarters into monthlies, but then it's also available as quarterly information, and we can see how we tracked all the way up. And then the only data points that are really relevant on this right here is how did we finish. So it looks like in 16 we were 100%, and in 15 we were 88%. So maybe somebody went through and I don't know what they did. But this is a way to increase all that. All right, let's look at some ugly stuff. I hope we're not too washed out. I don't think we will be. Horrid. Like, just worthless. It would take you, I don't even know what it's worth. Just don't ever do anything like this ever. Come on. Now, granted, Excel doesn't offer as many ugly options as they used to. They've really gotten a lot better about putting in some standard rules in here, but still, this is just ridiculous. I mean, what about the data in that back corner? Is it important? I don't know, it's all hidden. It's ridiculous. Here's the last ugly one. This is just, it's as brutal as the other two. I mean, no, that's great. Yeah, thanks for making the markers bigger than the line to a point where I don't even know if it is a line behind it. Okay, here we go. Now let's look at some really cool ones. And you get a chance to guess. Okay, so I put these markers on here to remind me what example is coming next. So if you want to take a guess on what we're going to talk about, you can.
Computers.
Huh? No, but that's a good guess. Actually, I threw it out there to throw everybody off. We're going to talk about pie charts. Okay. Anyway, so look, Weather Underground, if you're into data and you're just a data junkie in any sort of way, go to the weather people. They've been doing the Farmer's Almanac forever, and now they collect and report data just deeper and deeper than anybody. So if you really want to play with stuff, go to the weather guys. And these guys really have got some neat stuff going on. But I was laying in my bed one time, and they updated the app. And I flipped through, and I looked at some part of it, and I was like, holy crap, this is this is the greatest pie chart ever made. I immediately took a screenshot of it, and I saved it, because Steve had already told me that he wanted me to come here and do this. I'm like, that's one of my briefs. So here it is. The reason why this is so great, actually, I need to go back. So look over here. Variables. There's the time of day, the ratio of light to dark, twilight, both dusk and dawn. You're 30 minutes on both sides. Sunrise and sunset, all on one pie chart. Now, normally, if you threw this many variables, it would look like the ugly pie chart. There would just be all these slices and divisions. You'd be like, I don't even know what you're trying to do. But here, you can see there's the ratio. Where the little sun is up at the top, that's where the time is right now. So it's a 24-hour clock. You can start digesting this. If I tell you what the variables are, you can figure this out on your own. A bunch of smart people here. But I have the important stuff over here on the right. I don't have a bunch of lines pointing to it. I'm not doing crazy legends. I just have it there. And in fact, the color of the word sunrise is the same as the dot that's over here. The color of the word sunset is the same as that dot over there. Going back to color has meaning. Connect things through color or proximity or some other way. So that's a cool chart. Health and wealth. I was really bummed out to find out that this guy died this year. Anybody know this dude? He's like he's a Swedish dude. I think he teaches like public health at the University of Helsinki or something like that. Just a solid guy. Really puts out some really thought-provocative charts, visualizations. He also did a thing on BBC called The Joy of Statistics. Anyway. So here we go. On this next chart, variables displayed life expectancy, GDP per capita, which kind of is a surrogate for how rich your country is, the country population and the country location on the world. And again, this is washed out. I'm sorry, it's not my fault. But anyway, but the idea here is when you first look at it, your first inclination may be like, oh my God, that chart's so big, I just don't even want to look at it. But if you just relax and start looking at it, and you realize that the size of the bubble is equal to the relative size of the population. The color matches your little color region over here. And there's not a bunch of regions. There's like, are you Asia? Are you Eurasia? Are you Africa? Or are you just the Americas? That's it. And then you could start looking, and then of course the name of the country is right next to it. There's not a bunch of lines. Anyway, so the idea here, so that's the sizes and the colors of the bubbles. If you move to the right, you become richer. If you move to the top, you become healthier. And then you can start saying, wow, I got that. This is something you would want to provide as a handout, I think, because if you had it in front of you, next thing you know, you're like, wow, oh wow, I didn't know about that. You can actually start doing exploratory research off of a single chart made. That's kind of powerful. So, some have said that this next chart is maybe the best chart ever made by Charles Mignard, French guy. Get it over Pedro. Anyway, okay, so this has to do with Napoleon's march off to Moscow and back. Some would say it's failed. After you look at this chart, you'll realize how failed it was. Anyway, so there's a little bit about it. Here's the variables that are displayed on this one chart. It's the number of troops, the distance traveled, the temperature, the latitude, longitude, direction of travel, etc., etc. Okay, here you go. Bam. There it is. So I translated everything up there from French down into English. I didn't do it, the Google did it, but whatever. So I pasted it down here. But what's cool about this is that I actually prefer it to just stay in French because it's such a powerful graphic. You don't even need to know the language that it's written in. All you need to do is understand what it is you're looking at. So we'll take a closer look. The width of the line is the relative size of the army as it embarks on the campaign. The color is, it shows yellow here, but it's kind of a beige. But anyway, the color, if it's yellow, you're heading to Moscow, and if it's black, you're retreating from it. There's numbers along the side that just give you an indication of the numbers of troops as you go down. This is placed on a map, so it actually shows lat and long, indication right there. There are lines that drop down a log here, and this is a temperature scale. On certain days, it shows you the temperature that it was because it's bad when it gets really cold. You're going to Russia. Okay, anyway, so you can see right here. You can't see, so I'll just tell you the answer. The number right up here is 422,000 is the number of people that started the march on Moscow. And as you can see, they went off, and it's interesting. I mean, this is so accurate that he even shows where they branched off some troops and they left them for reserve. So that you can see these lines of yellow going up here, and correspondingly, when they were coming back, they called for the reserves to come back in, and you can see that they came in as a black line all the way down. So let's move more towards Russia. Okay, so we're at Moscow, so we keep on moving all the way down, and you'll see that the line is just going down the whole way. that's just to let you know that this wasn't like a hike, and then we're going to go fight in Moscow, we're going to come back. We're warring the entire way. So we're just losing people the whole time. We get to Moscow, we have about 100,000 people. We turn around, we got 100,000 on the way back. You can see sometimes where the line just drips, dips, dips. These are big major battles, and all this, again, was taken off of journals from soldiers that were on this thing. The reserves come back down. They meet them down at this city right here. This is the Berezina, I think is the name of the river. This is where they had about 60,000 people that were going across. They lost 25,000 in frozen waters, drowning, getting trampled by a lot of things. It was a pretty brutal thing. And in fact, I think even in French I read that Berezina is a synonym for disaster in French, even still today. Anyway, so I'll give you the final answer right here, the thinnest line all the way down to 10,000. 10,000 people got that. So you can get all of that if you just understand what it is, and you can start looking at it, and it's pretty neat. How about this? So I took it. This is horrible looking. But on the slide, it looks a lot better. I took it. I took the actual chart, dropped its opacity to 20%, took a Google Map snapshot of the area, and then dropped it on top of it, and it lines up perfectly with the cities and the rivers as it is. So that's how accurate it was done in the 1860s when we put it together. Okay, this is the last one. Here we go. Snowflake. Jon Snow. Who knows Jon Snow? Come on. Not that Jon Snow. This Jon Snow. He's the father of modern epidemiology. And most notable, he actually, for anybody who's ever had surgery, he was one of the pioneering proponents of anesthesia, which, round of applause, great idea. But the other one is he's the one who more or less figured out this cholera outbreak in London. And here's some stats on it. A couple days into it, a lot of people were dead. 10 days later, a whole lot of people were dead. 616 people died. And here's the variables on here. It's the number of dead, location of dead, number of water pumps, and where the water pumps are. But the neat thing about it is that he dropped it on a map, created a chart, and once he did, it was like, holy crap, if I'm right, because germ theory guy, what's his name? Pasteur had not even offered this up yet. So it was still, kind of debating, are germs or whatever's working. So he's like, I'm pretty sure this is what it is. So here's his chart. Okay, so it's really kind of hard to get anything out of it because now we're not going to be mean to old Jon Snow. He had like a 2x4 and a quill pen to put this thing together. So there's not a lot of, you can't get a lot of detail on it, but we can, using some of our newfound skills. First thing we could do is reduce, I was going to say reduce the opacity, but I just made it go away. But trust me, it's actually still there. And then you could painstakingly, you take about 2.5 hours in Photoshop and find all 616 little rectangles and draw little tiny red boxes around them. You could do that. And if you do, this is what it looks like. And then you go through and you find the water pumps, which is a lot easier, and you put those blue dots on there. Now, after I got done doing that, I realized the blue dots just didn't really stand out, so I put little halos around it, which you can't see here, but the halos kind of make it stand out. Anyway, if you were to just look at this and you knew that there were city streets behind it, I think it's pretty clear which pump you may want to go investigate, or as the rumor, the story goes, he went over there and talked to the mayor and said, remove that handle and whatever, and everybody died. The theory is, I think the outbreak was on its way back out. But anyway, he figured this out, and so that is really cool. And if you really want to play some tricks with contrast and everything like that, you can flip it around. You may or may not be able to see that. But anyway, that's what Jon Snow did. Here are just a couple of things. Really, honestly, the name of the author of the book is Robin Williams, not the late comedian. She's been actually writing on design for a whole long time. It's a fantastic book, easy read, and it's funny. So that may, if that's an interest for you. And then Dr. Tufte Stephen Few from Berkeley and Yale. Juice Analytics is a company I've been following for probably about 7 or 8 years, and I use a Weather Underground thing. And then in my final, I guess, not listening to Ray Jorgensen. I have are there any questions? Probably not. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's right. It's a bureau.
Yes, Lieutenant Commander Noel, on behalf of the LEAPS Committee, thank you for being with us today.
Upstairs.